than she had been believed up till this time.
Well, she mentioned that her faith that she had had as a girl and young woman, which was a very narrow kind of Christian faith, had not been sufficient for her to cope with what really was the tragedy of her life. A young mother with 3 very young daughters, a husband who was so abusive that she had been forced to separate from him, no money at all, alone in a foreign country without her family. Can you imagine the psychological state she must have been in? I mean, she was on her knees.
Extreme primordial fear, I would imagine.
Oh, yes, and for good reason. And she found that her childhood faith was not enough, and I think it was that emptiness within her that made her respond to theosophy.
Yes, I would agree with that, and but it was that foundation she had that kept her going, and but then, as you say, it wasn't enough, but then I think she began to look into the whole range of ideas that the theosophy of philosophy was providing to the world at that time. It was written, in the works of H.P. Blavatsky, and she encountered these women that had trained with Blavatsky, and so that's how she really got started, and she moved into the theosophical work in her life, and that was kind of the beginning of her new life, so to speak.
Maybe we should define very quickly what theosophy is. It's a movement that is part of the ageless wisdom, which is an ancient strain of spiritual teaching that runs really through all the major world religions. Theosophy is the study of this kind of golden thread that permeates world religions, and it has 3 essential principles to it: that there is a plan for the world, a plan held in the mind of God, which humanity must grasp and implement; that there are masters or great beings who have progressed through the human stage and gone beyond the ordinary stage of humanity to a higher stage of spiritual consciousness, and that these masters stay with the world and oversee its evolution. And the third point is the doctrine of karma and rebirth, that every human life is subject to law and to repeated cycles of opportunity for evolution. This is the essence of theosophy, and when Alice encountered this, it really blasted open her consciousness, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yes, tremendously, and she became involved in the theosophical work and became an officer in the Theosophical Society out there in Southern California, in Pacific Grove, I think it was.
And later she moved, oddly enough, to Hollywood. Hollywood in the early part of the century was a center of theosophy in the region called Crotona.
And it's while she was working in theosophy, she met her second husband, Foster Bailey, which is, of course, where her Alice Bailey name comes from. And they were very closely related spiritually. And they were both officers in the Theosophical Society there in Southern California. So that was the real focus of her work until she met, or I don't know how to put this now.
How are we going to put this?
Because she was contacted telepathically by a voice. That's the way she described it. And in fact, she says it was in November of 1919 that I made my first contact with this person. She was out on the hillside behind her home and just resting and thinking and reflecting, and suddenly she heard what she thought was a clear note of music, which sounded from the sky and through the hills and in me. And then I heard a voice that says, "There are some books that I would wish you to write. Would you do that for me, please?" And so at first she said no, she wouldn't do that. But then he prevailed on her, and later they began to write these books, and they were dictated to her telepathically.
That became one of her two projects at which she spent 30 years, the next 30 years. The other project being the establishing of a school for the development of spiritual consciousness leading to a life of service. She established a school in 1922 or 23 called the Arcane School, which still is in existence today. And at the same time, she began writing these books, which amounted to 24 volumes. And it's a remarkable life story of service to humanity. She and Foster Bailey moved from California to New York the next year and established their movement, I guess you could call it. Organization isn't the proper word. They established the Lucis Trust and gradually attracted cooperators to them who could work with them, and the work grew to be worldwide by the end of her life in 1949.
Yes, and I'd like to say in here just briefly that this contact that she had was not a discarnate being. He was a physical person. He was a Tibetan with physical plane duties in Tibet, and he was an abbot in a lamasery. And these books that actually he dictated to her were all done telepathically. They never met physically, but she was here in New York or in the East and the West, and he was there in the East. And
or something like
this
that.
was carried on from a mind-to-mind contact from between two people in physical bodies, and that's a very important thing to kind of get across, because he wasn't a dead person. He wasn't some discarnate entity.
Some spirit, right.
No.
Well, maybe people, if they want to know more about this work that we've just barely touched on, they can contact us, and we'd be glad to send them a packet of information.
We certainly will. You can ask for a general package of information where there are many layers to our organization, and one of the common questions is, are you a religion? No, we're not. We're more of a philosophical organization. It's a viewpoint of life. It's a way of leading life. So if you'd like to order a general package of information, please give us a call at 1-866-NY-LUCIS. Think of New York Lucis, Lucis, or 1-866-695-8247. That's 1-866-695-8247. And what's astounding too, I might add at our close here, is that if there are any doubts in the literature, what really dazzled me is, as I read the literature, all the statements that she makes in her literature and the predictions that she makes. It was made in the 1910, 1920. So many of them have materialized about scientific discoveries, events of the future, and it's absolutely amazing. In closing, we invite you to ponder on this thought. Goodwill is the touchstone that will transform the world. It is the energy that draws us together in right relationship. There's a world prayer called the Great Invocation. Let's listen for a moment to these powerful words.
From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth.